So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and time for another Ramblings of a Fool. So ranked battles. How are we feeling about ranked battles, eh? Anybody played much of them out there? I have to say, for me, they come at the wrong time. I tend to play either during the day or late at night, and it never seems to be running when I'm playing, so I played only about 3 or 4 games in it, but I have been watching it with interest. I've seen some comments on some of my videos, comments on others, been on the forums, been in Reddit, and I can't say it's really seems to be going down terribly well, apart from the Super Unicums, who are loving it, and why wouldn't they? So, quick rehash, what are ranked battles? It is a new game mode in World of Tanks where it is 15v15 on the standard maps, but only using tier 10 vehicles. Each season is a period of time that you can play games. There is only a 4-hour window in each day where you can play. So you can't just sit on which I like, because we know what people are like. People will sit there and play 24/7 if it's available all the time, because it's based on how your performance is, how your rewards are. So if your team wins a game and you are in the top 12 base XP on your team, you will get basically a bonus. You will move up. You'll move up in the ranks. And it progresses up, so your first win moves you immediately to first rank. Then you need 3, I think it is, to get to the next rank, and blah blah blah. If your team don't win, then you can still move up a rank if you're in the top 3 performers on your defeated team. All sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Now, what can you win? Well, if at the end of the season it's based on who did well and what rank you reached, and you can get these special bonds, and as we know, these special bonds can be used to buy improved equipment and special things that you can use to enhance your crews, which basically give you a big up on anybody else playing with standard equipment. So yeah, GG Wargaming, you've basically given the Super Unicums, who are very, very good at the game, who will do really, really well in the tier 10 ranked battle. You've given them a bonus as well in the normal battles. Good. That's gonna really good well. Anyway, I'm vehemently against the rewards. I think ranked battles, I think as a concept, I have no problem with. However, it seems to me, having read all the comments and forums and comments in my videos and other people's videos, it's not working. Well, it's not working. It's not working for most players. You could argue it's working very nicely for Wargaming and for the Super Unicums out there. And it seems at the moment, it's a common theme you'll hear from me, it seems that at the moment Wargaming only seem to care about what Super Unicums think. So what's the problem? Well, it appears that you go, and at my experience as well, the few games I've played, is you go into a game, everybody's foreign gold. Everybody's foreign gold. So it's wall-to-wall gold. You also, largely, if you want to win, you've got to play in one of the competitive vehicles, should we say. So a Type 5 Heavy with its super armor and is, extra enhanced HE is a definite winner. The Object 140s, the T62As, the Mouse, which is ridiculously OP at the moment. Those sort of vehicles are the sort of vehicles, if you want to do well in ranked battles, you're going to have to play, and you're going to have to load it with loads and loads of gold, and you're going to have to go out and be extremely selfish in how you play the game, because it's based on your performance. So you need to win the game to have the best chance, but even if you don't win the game, the fact that you've been fantastic at killing and shooting and damaging other tanks and getting into your top 3 means it doesn't really matter whether you win or lose, does it? Because this doesn't affect your glorious stats, so the stat twats don't mind. It's all about the chevrons and getting up the ranks and getting to the higher ranks, and therefore getting all the bonuses. And that seems to be the feedback. If you go on Reddit, I was looking at this. This was a really interesting post somebody put up. Due to the design, ranked battles exaggerates everything wrong with World of Tanks. Due to its design, landslide wins are more frequent. Tanks like the problematic Type 5 Heavy and Mouse are dominating the battlefield, demanding gold ammo to be spent to even have the chance to take them down. Heavy tanks not firing gold do not do well at all. Unless they fire premium ammo, which drops the feasibility of such a game mode, suddenly the winning team has one more is the one that wins. Sorry, the winning team is the one that has more gold firing tanks. And looking at the feedback, it seems to be pretty well agreed that this is the case. And I would love to know the numbers, but I would guess that people are dropping from this game mode. I can't really and honestly be very clear on what my experiences of it, because it's never seems to be running when I go on. It only has that window of opportunity to play, and that just doesn't work the time typically I go on the game. And also I don't really like tier 10s, and I don't want to spam gold all the time. So I've only played a couple of games. What I have seen have been pretty atrocious gameplay, frankly. A lot of very basic players who clearly don't know what they're doing in a tier 10 like me, and being basically culled by very good players who do know what they're doing and are fat spamming gold. And it ain't no fun. What worries me more about, and that's fine, you know, guys go off and do and play and do whatever you like, but what worries me is the effect it's going to have on standard games, and it's going to have on clan wars and strongholds with this extra equipment, these extra boosts that certain players are going to have. It's just ridiculous. But let me know, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you think. If you played it, let me know what your experience is. I'd love to know. So another thing to be aware of is the patch updates. So it appears that there's been a few problems with the latest patch 9.19. We've had a lot of micro patches, I think 2 at least I can think of, since the new patch went in. And the next one is going to be an interim patch. So it's not going to be a full patch, but it's going to be 9.1, bringing more fixes and some changes to the game. So they're looking at will likely be mid-July according to the Daily Bounce, and then they're looking at 9.20 coming probably towards mid to end of August, which will bring new graphics, new maps, etc. They're suggesting that personal missions, new set of personal missions will come later this year, probably towards the end of the year. Although they say they're 80% ready, they don't want to rush them out, which is good. About time they did think about these things rather than rushing them out. Test server likely to go up between 21st and 23rd of June, and the second test will be 28th to the 30th of June. What's coming in it? Well, we don't know yet. We'll know a little bit more as we move forward, but yeah, look at this Russian bias. Changes to Russian to regular vehicles are mainly Russian in brackets buffs. Changes to premium vehicles, mainly Russian buffs. So is the i6 getting a buff? I bet it is. New revised personal rating system. Well, that will help the stat twats out no end. And complex fixes, brackets Arcanons, but no idea what this could be. So full patch notes in a few days, but basically is a micro patch, well, a sort of halfway interim patch going on end of July or mid-July, and then the full 9.20 end of August. That's exciting, isn't it? Just what we need. Buffed Russian tanks. So finally something good to talk about from Wargaming. There's been a few issues with server crashes and connection problems, and the game generally, they've had a few problems, particularly with this 9.19 patch, hence why they're going to have to do even more patching, it appears. And to sort of say sorry for that, they have given every player in the game the chance to get some freebies as a sort of sorry, we'll do better thing. So if you log on and win a game, that's all you have to do between the 12th of June and the 22nd of June, you will get a day's premium account, you'll get 3 personal reserves of plus 50% XP for 2 hours, 3 personal reserves of plus 100% crew experience for 2 hours, and 3 personal reserves of 100% free XP for 2 hours. So that's good, and you know, it's good that they recognise they cocked it up, so to speak, and are giving us something in return. So if you haven't already done so, log in, play a game, win it. Could be challenging some days, I know, and yeah, get your freebies. So for those of you who've managed to get on the sandbox, I still haven't. Oh well, never mind. Don't think I'm going to anymore. They're continuing to tinker with some of the maps that you can get for the frontline mode. So this is a reminder for those who don't remember. Frontline is the new mode that they're investigating. It's 30 by 30 on new maps, bigger maps than the traditional maps, because there needs to be, right? 30 by 30 means there's twice as many tanks as there currently are. And they've tried various options here. This is one of the newer maps. This is Sunny Valley, which is a rather intriguing name. And some of the things they've changed with this are the city area here has been expanded to accommodate heavy tanks, because apparently it was too open before. The approaches to the central area have been limited and reduced, so maybe it was just too difficult to control corridors there, I don't know. Down here the original single ridge has been split, hopefully encouraging combat to be more for the area control rather than a single point. So they make the area 2 much narrower and tighter, and then they open this bit out. Yeah, because logic. Oh well. And both spawns have been modified to create more equal starts for both teams, while hopefully maintaining some difference and better distribution at the beginning of the match. Okay, so there you go. Sunny Valley, Sunnyville has been buffed or changed or amended. So anybody managed to play on it yet? I haven't. So I still just can't get on Sandbox. Every time I go and have a look at it, it's offline. So whatever. But I can't get excited about these 30v30 games, because to me something's going to happen. They've screwed up every time they've introduced some new mode. Historic Battles, they screwed that one up. The current Domination, they ran for a while. They screwed that up because of trying to offer too many bribes for people in form of overpowered tanks you could win, so people cheated. The current ranked battles, I think, is screwed up because suddenly, you know, you can get super equipment, so people are going to go crazy for that, and that's what they're doing. So, you know, something will go wrong with these 30v30 games, and it's a shame, because I think this could be a good mode. I also think interesting. I think it's a shame they didn't work on the historic mode. They could very easily have done some kind of AI service, so that because the big problem, so just for those who don't remember, but the historic thing, because it's been gone quite a long time now, so the idea behind this was that you would take historically accurate vehicles and fight against each other in a historic mode. So if you took German, you would only fight with German tanks against Russians, or against American tanks or British tanks or what have you, and it limited what you could pick. So for a German tank, for instance, you could pick the Tiger 1, but you couldn't have the top gun that you get in the game, because that's not historically accurate. You could have the next gun down, which is actually what it had in the war. Now the only problem with it was that A, everybody wanted to play the same side, and B, the balancing didn't work very well. So in reality is, if you had a side of, you know, I don't know, sake of argument, 5 Tigers, you needed to make sure that there were other people driving Mark 4s, for instance, or Mark 3s even, to balance the sides out. And the reality was nobody wanted to play them, and everyone wanted to play the same side, the same tank, and the wait times on the game were atrocious. And of course, as wait times go up for playing a new game, people lost interest, went off and did something else, and therefore numbers dropped and wait times got even worse, to the point where nobody was playing the thing, and they scrapped it. And it was such a shame, because I think it really had something in it for those of us a bit more historically focused and interested in the history itself, the ability to fight out a battle between a Panzer IV and a T-34 in a sort of fairly historic setting would have been great fun to have done. Well, it was great fun to do, but as I say, it just didn't work. And I've always thought they missed a trick there. They should have taken a lesson from armored warfare and used it as having artificial, intelligence running one side and almost having it as a side game from the main game, so that you didn't have to, spoil your stats or your good tank, but you could go off and play it separately, using, maybe a rented vehicle if you didn't have one or something like that. And there'd be some incentive for doing it, maybe credit generation, crew training, I don't know. There's ways to work around that, but it would have been a really good thing to do, but instead they just scrapped it. So hey ho, one day maybe they'll look at it again. But there you go, new map, modified map on the new frontline mode that is being tested on the sandbox. We don't know when, if it'll ever reappear or appear in the main game. We'll just have to wait and see. But they're putting a lot of effort in, so I suspect very strongly something will come out of this. And I suspect very strongly it won't be the enormous map that we had at the beginning, the Operation Overlord map, where you had to sort of it was like a breakthrough from the beach and then into the open country and then take out strategic points at the back. That mode seems to have disappeared, which was a shame. It's the only one I've played actually, whereas now there's 3 maps of this sort of slightly larger than normal, well, actually quite a lot larger than normal, but looking like a normal standard encounter game in World of Tanks, which I think is a shame. I think it would be nice if they had a bit of variation there, but it is what it is. So we'll see if and when it appears. So what was really interesting when I was looking back at some of the things that happened on, this day in recent history, I discovered something I didn't know happened at this time. I knew about the battle, but not the timing of it. So this is the Battle of Saipan. Saipan is that little circular, the island within that circular thing, just north of Guam. And this was part of the Americans' kind of island hopping, recapturing the atolls and islands in the run-up to potentially attacking and invading Japan proper towards the end of the war. And of course they never, they landed on some of the outlying islands in the end, but never needed to, thankfully, actually land on mainland Japan because of the atomic bombs going off and Japanese suing for peace. But some of the fighting in these Pacific islands was some of the most savage fighting there has ever been. And the Battle of Saipan actually started on June the 13th, 1944. And what was even more surprising to me, and just shows the sheer power and influence of the US economy in those days, was the fact that they were able to open up 2 fronts, 2 big landing amphibious invasions at pretty much the same time. So they left the day before D-Day, Operation Overlord, and landed at Saipan on the 13th of June 1944. And it was one of the most fearsome battles you're likely to encounter. I mean, some of the sheer amount of personnel and equipment that was landed, as there was in most of these kind of battles against the atolls. So the invasion actually started on the 13th of June, was preceded by a massive bombardment from the sea. 15 battleships were involved, 15 of them, 8 of them somewhat older, but some of the newest battleships in the American Navy, the Tennessee, the California, to name 2, and they pulverized the defences, the Japanese defences on the island. 165,000 shells were fired in that initial bombardment. I mean, fearsome what it must have been to be facing. And then the initial wave went in on the 15th of June, so a couple of days after that, and 300 LVTs landed, 8,000 Marines on the coast, on the west coast. And you can see, here they are. First, the 2nd and 4th Marines landed here. And they were counterattacked very, very rapidly by the Japanese, coming out of their emplacements and trying to force them back without success. The battle was not expected. They hadn't predicted that the Americans would be landing here, and it caught the Japanese on the hop. And their high command took a big risk, and this be another battle that people who follow, or aware of military history, be well aware of. The Japanese launched their carrier group that was near the islands to counterattack, to try and break up the American invasion, and that became the Battle of the Philippine Seas, and it was an absolute disaster for the Imperial Japanese Navy, one of many they had around this sort of period. They lost 3 aircraft carriers and hundreds of planes, and effectively at the end of that meant that the garrison that was on this island, which was considerable, was completely isolated and cut off from any kind of supply or resupply. But unfortunately, the way things were with the Japanese in this part of the war, well, in any point of the war, to be honest, they never gave up, and it required the Americans to break their way into the island and take elements of it. First of all, they broke in south here, and there's an airfield down here. They recaptured that, and then they started to work their way up through the island and basically clear out the Japanese defenders, base by base, emplacement by emplacement, and it was horrific fighting. I mean, some of the fighting, you see some of these pictures. I mean, flamethrowers being used to basically burn the Japanese out, and there was a lot of casualties on both ways. The Japanese managed to sink a lot of tanks that were floating tanks that were being brought in, amphibious tanks, and it was truly horrendous fight. But materials and equipment paid out in the end, to the degree that finally the Japanese were pushed back into one little corner of the island. No hope of any kind of rescue or resupply. They were running out of food, everything else. And rather than the surrender on the 7th of July, they decided, or their commands decided, for one last suicidal banzai charge. And the remaining troops, plus civilians apparently, around about 3,000 men, led by a group of 12 carrying a great big red flag, charged straight at the Americans. Predictably, they were cut down, and pretty much every single man was killed. And it took several more days until about the 9th of July before the Americans were able to announce that the island was fully secured and the garrison was finally wiped out there. But estimates vary, but they reckon that at least 30,000 Japanese and locals were killed defending this island, and virtually none of them survived. Virtually nobody defending the island survived. Out of the 71,000 the Americans landed, nearly 3,000 were killed, 10,500 wounded. It was a brutal fight, one of many in that sort of period. In fact, there's an interesting aside discovered when I was looking this battle up. Hollywood actor Lee Marvin, for those of you a bit older like me, will remember Lee Marvin from all sorts of Hollywood movies, westerns and all sorts. He was actually fought in this battle and was wounded. Served with the 24th Marine Regiment, was actually shot in the bum by a Japanese machine gun during the assault, and he got the Purple Heart and a medical discharge for it. So yeah, lucky, got a new hole. But fearsome battles, fearsome times. Some of those fights around the Japanese islands and the Pacific Islands generally were some of the most fearsome battles there has probably were seen in the Second World War. Possibly, for brutality up to the level of the Eastern Front. Grim things. Anyway, that's what happened around this day. Well, in fact, exactly this day in 1944. Just thought that'd be interesting aside. People seem to enjoy the first one I did on this sort of thing, so if I can find out interesting things that have happened on the times when I do my ramblings, then I'll include them in, so let me know what you think. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative and interesting and entertaining. If you did, give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, please, 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 please. And in the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously. It is just a game, unlike these poor souls that did it for real. And I'll see you again soon. Gamer Dom out.